Hi, this is Heather Riley, and you've reached Riley Books. If you're trying to find me online, I have the name that rhymes, R-E-I-L-L-Y. If you've left a question for me about myself or my writing on Twitter or Facebook, and I have not gotten back to you, please check my website, www.rileybooks.com. If a lot of people have asked the same question, I'll actually add it to my About the Author page, so you can find out the answers there. If you're interested in having a copy of the artwork I do in today's video, listen afterwards for the skill testing question. The first 3 people who get it right will get a digital copy of the artwork mailed straight to your door. When you leave me a question or a comment, please keep it clean. These videos are geared towards children and adults alike, and we don't want to offend. You might. I don't want to offend. This all here reflects on me. I want to know you're well educated. Use proper English. Proper English? Full sentences? Show me you can use full sentences. Leave me a comment down below. This is the video for Night Surrender, Chapter 4.
A Second First Impression. Aylan nervously ran her fingertips along the soft velvety chair cushion she sat on while the servant poured her drink. She added cool milk and honey to her cup and stirred. The spoon clinked against the sides of the cup as steam rose lazily into the air, lifting the pleasant aroma to her nose. The serving girl finished pouring the drinks and left Aylan and the prince to talk in peace. Oslan, Aylan noticed, now that they were seated across from each other, was built both strong and sturdy. He was also handsome, not that she'd ever admit it to anyone, even under the threat of torture. He had thick chestnut brown hair that was just starting to grow long enough for it to curl at the ends. He had a wide forehead, a strong jaw, and eyes that were a piercing color, a little too green to be hazel, that lit up his face. She felt a brief flicker of a butterfly's wing in her tummy and was secretly glad she had agreed to come. The prince was 12 years old and seemed fair, although once he came up with an idea, apparently he would not be swayed from it. To resolve the issue of Aylan and Millie's treatment of each other, he had had a new bath prepared for Aylan. She had been allowed to bathe and go about her grooming routine on her own. However, Millie was also declared Aylan's new handmaiden for the duration of her stay at the castle. She would be her personal servant, doing Aylan's mending, laying out her clothes, filling her pitcher, and emptying her basin. Millie would also help her with her correspondence and be her companion. They would just have to learn to get along, Aylan realized with chagrin, or life in the castle was going to be made very, very hard. "The reason I summoned you to tea is twofold," started the prince. "I was watching out my window and saw what you did to that thief in the marketplace. I believe that I may be able to use you, if you wouldn't mind stepping up to the job, that is. Not to mention that I find your manner highly entertaining." The sting of embarrassment heated her cheeks. "I'm glad I amuse you, your highness," she mumbled through gritted teeth. "In what way would you wish to use me?" she asked cautiously. "I would like my father's mage, Oslan, to train you to become my mage." Aylan had begun sipping her drink, and at this point the strong, hot brew she had been drinking flew from her mouth, covering Oslan with a spray of fine mist. "Ahem!" He cleared his throat while wiping off his face. "Though I admit that at some times I do find you more entertaining than at others." "I'm so sorry, your highness," Aylan sputtered. "You took me by surprise." "I apologize," he replied. "Remind me never to surprise you when you are eating something meaty with gravy that might stain." Aylan felt her cheeks blaze as she flushed a deep crimson red which warmed her face all the way up to her ears. Embarrassed, she changed the subject back to the one at hand. "But you don't need me. I only know how to throw a little dust around. I'm no mage. Mages work with real magic, if there is such a thing. My fire dust is only herbs. Science, really. Besides," she added, "what could you possibly want with me when you have Oslan?" "It is true that I have Oslan's aid now, but his home is far away, I fear, and he longs to return there. He came to us by accident years ago. He was sailing with a group of men on a trading expedition. Their plan was to trade for herbs, spices, livestock, and anything else that would prove useful. He was from a large town with a university and was sent by his teacher to learn all he could and then pass on his knowledge to another. Once he had done that, he would be allowed to return home to start his own family and take a prestigious position at the university there. He explained to me that the process would take 2 to 3 years to finish his learning and prove himself as a teacher to a student. Unfortunately, his ship never completed its journey. The trading party had been anxious to leave as harvest time was upon them. They didn't want to miss the chance to buy something that they might be able to use, and they didn't want their tradable goods to spoil. They had been warned by a seer that if they left within the fortnight, that disaster would befall them. They had scoffed at the idea, as they were traveling with seasoned sailors who would know what to do in any situation. Besides, they did not put much credence in the ability of seers who claimed to see the future, a mistake they may have learned to correct if still alive today. The boat launched 2 days later, but while most of them had been feeling nothing but ease, Lazelin had felt unease. They had sailed about halfway and had begun to notice the swells of waves growing larger when the mighty storm hit. It was dawn. The sun should have been rising, but the sky remained dark, the air filled with mist. The cloud cover was so deep and murky that it seemed almost sinister, as if it had been sent there. Cloud cover was so deep and murky that it seemed almost sinister, as if it had been sent there to mock them. Now the sailors were beginning to feel jittery. Lightning began hitting tall trees on far-off shorelines, and it was the only light they had to see by. The air was filled with the scent of electricity as thunder boomed across the sky, rolling out in waves like the waters below. The salt-smelling sea became rougher still. The waves swelled and rolled until they started to crash upon the deck itself, washing away goods, supplies, and men alike. Everyone was drenched to the bone from the mingling freezing cold waves and thick fog. The calls of "Man overboard!" were hard to hear as the crack of the thunder echoed through the sky. Then, as the boat was tossed about like a young child's toy, keening to one side, lightning hit the mainsail's mast. The sail burst into flames, which were half extinguished by the rain that began to drive down, pelting the boat and sailors with cold spears of water. This continued until his boat was dashed apart on invisible rocks that destroyed it in the crash of the storm. A few men who could swim, and many more that could not, were lost to the sea. Others drifted to one place or another on pieces of the ship's debris, and still others were simply never to be heard from again. Lazelin was one of the lucky ones that was able to swim. He swam for hours, and when he was too cold and tired to move any further, he simply floated there looking up at the sky. He eventually floated near enough to shore that he was spotted by some of our kingdom's fishermen. They hauled him aboard and brought him back to safety. Being unconscious and dressed in strange clothing, he was brought before the guards of the castle for interrogation. He told the guards his story, and they brought him before my father, great King Euryalus, who did not believe in magic. The teenager must have done something impressive indeed to convince him, because when he left the room, not only was my father convinced of the existence of magic, but he had offered the boy a job at his right hand. My father sent a messenger to Lazelin's university, explaining what had happened, and asked that Lazelin be allowed to stay and work for a while without jeopardizing his place at the university. The professor and Lazelin's family agreed, as long as he still performed the duties they had sent him away for, and so he has stayed with us. It has been a long while, and he misses them very much. He had been courting a maid there, and woos her still through lengthy love letters. He now wishes to seek out the woman that has waited these long years for him to marry her. His fortune is now grand enough that they shall want for nothing. However, though he has learned and become a more promising mage, he has yet to train an apprentice before he may return to start his family. I was only 8 when he joined us, so I have grown up these last years with Lazelin, and I too believe in the existence of magic. I have come also to believe that every good king should have a mage on his side. I am the heir to the throne, and in a few short years I will need someone I can trust. Someone who will work with me to make this a fine place to live for all the kingdom's subjects. I have seen you in action. I know your heart is pure and your actions are just. You have been one of this kingdom's subjects and have worked to land, so I know you can give me a fresh perspective on what my people might need. Besides, he waited for her to swallow and added with a gleam in his eye, I can't ascend to the throne until I have taken a wife.
You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook at Riley Books. The question for today's video is, what color are Oslan's eyes? Remember, if you're on YouTube and you liked this video, hit that like and subscribe button so I know what you think. And that's today's look at a Riley book.